Hey guys, welcome to WNT. My name's Lindsay, and I'm so excited that you joined us tonight. If you are here for the first time, that's amazing. Welcome. If you're here and back after a while, welcome. If you're here every week, we love you guys. We're so glad you're a part of this family. So glad you're a part of this community. And so I just wanted to say, we're pumped for tonight. We're pumped to see what God does. We're starting a new series. We have a lot of great things planned for you tonight, and I'm so excited to eventually get to jump into small groups to hear Taylor teach. But I just want to remind you guys that this is a space that you can belong. You do not need to perform here. You don't need to put on masks here. You can just be who you are. I know you guys are going through a lot of different things, a lot of hard things. I know many of you started online school for the first time this week. So I just invite you to come and be in this space. I just know that you can just be and belong here at WNT and in your small groups, and we love you. And I also just want to remind you, we're a community that's all about following Jesus and becoming more like Jesus and being apprentices and disciples of Jesus. And so in this space, that's what we're focusing on. That's what we're thinking about and aiming towards. And so know that you don't need to believe like us to belong in this community, but that is something that's the core thing about who we are, is that we're figuring out what it looks like to follow Jesus and to become like him. So welcome to this time. Welcome to this space. I hope you guys enjoy Taylor's talk. I hope you guys enjoy small groups after. We're so excited that you're here. Love you guys.
Easter, a time for fake grass, plastic eggs, these things, chocolate bunnies, and people dressed as bunnies. And then there are the weird parts of Easter, like fake grass, plastic eggs, these things, chocolate bunnies, and people dressed as bunnies, which is interesting. But what does all this stuff have to do with Easter? And if this holiday is about more than candy and wearing uncomfortable clothes to church and lunch with your relatives, what makes Easter happy?
Happy Easter, everyone. Okay, I know it's not Easter Sunday quite yet, but at the church and Walmart and Target and all the grocery stores, we've been ready for this holiday for months. No matter how you grew up celebrating it, or if you grew up celebrating it, I think we can all agree that for the most part, Easter's a fun time. There's Easter bunnies, Easter eggs, which is a really weird combo, by the way. But yeah, so much candy. What a great time. We're starting a new series today on Easter and the resurrection. We're calling it Happy Easter. And in this series, we're going to talk about some of the reasons why Easter is such a big deal, particularly for those who follow Jesus. And if you're like me, growing up, you're probably wondering why Easter is even a thing. But during this series, we'll talk about not only what we celebrate at Easter, but also why that can and should make us happy. But before we get there, let's talk about the Easter Bunny for a second. Does the idea of a huge bunny seem strange to anyone else, or is that just me? But seriously, check out these pictures. I have to admit, those pictures are funny and terrifying at the same time. Easter's mostly a fun holiday, but for those kids, it's not fun at all. It's kind of terrifying. And even though your family is probably not going to make you dress up and sit with a giant Easter bunny this Easter, I think we all know that feeling of being scared. We all know that fear can take away our happiness almost faster than anything. We've all felt some form of fear since we were little kids, whether it was being in the dark, that was me, or even getting hurt, or being left out of a game. Fear can wreck our sense of peace and happiness. Then, as you grew older, your fears likely transformed to other things, like failing classes, being rejected by friends, not making a team, or getting rejected by your crush. Yeah, your fear looked different than when you were a little kid, but the feeling was still very real. And now you're in high school, and you've probably figured out that you don't just grow out of fear. As you grow up, fears grow up with you. Maybe you don't call it fear, maybe you call it stress, or feeling anxious or being worried, but no matter what you call it, you probably fear something. We all do. Maybe for you, it's fear of not fitting in, keeping the right GPA, or getting into the college of choice. Fear about your health, the health of your relationships, and the health of the people you love. Fear of the future, not amounting to anything, or not having any real significance in life. Whatever your particular fear is, you don't need me to tell you that it's very real to you. In fact, chances are that in this group, watching right now, fear is determining the direction of a lot of our lives. I know this is true for me sometimes. We're making decisions to do or not do certain things based on fear. We're avoiding people or conversations that need to happen because they freak us out. We're numbing ourselves for hours on our phones because we don't want to acknowledge the feelings of stress or fear we have inside of us. Whether we realize it or not, fear is fueling a lot of thoughts and actions. And that's exactly where Easter comes in. As we head into the Easter season, you may have heard that the point of this whole holiday isn't actually eggs or bunnies or chocolate. For those of us who follow Jesus, this is the time of year we celebrate how he came to earth, died on a cross as a criminal, and then 3 days later rose from the dead. That is why Christians celebrate Easter. It changed everything. It made a way for people like you and me to live without fear. And we know this is true because of the examples we have in the New Testament. Paul is one of the most famous Christians in history because he became a Jesus follower, or before he became a Jesus follower, he spent years trying to scare Christians into leaving their faith, using death as the ultimate threat. But then he met the resurrected Jesus and everything changed. The guy who used to threaten Christians' lives became the greatest missionary of all time. He was shipwrecked, imprisoned, threatened, beaten, and bitten by a venomous snake. But he kept going because he was so passionate about people understanding the significance of Jesus' death and resurrection. Paul's life was constantly in danger. In fact, he was eventually killed for his faith. But despite all of that, Paul seemed to live without a fear of death. And in one of Paul's letters, we can see why. Paul wrote a letter to the church in an ancient city called Corinth. It's called Corinthians, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. He reminds the Christians there that Jesus died and came back to life 3 days later. So listen to what Paul writes. 1 Corinthians 15:54-55 says, "Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" It's like Paul is taunting the very idea of death by reminding the Corinthians that on Easter, Jesus defeated death. When Jesus died and then rose again, he defeated death. And that means that because of the resurrection, death no longer defeats us. The power that death has over our relationships, our reputations, our future hopes and dreams, and even our physical bodies is gone thanks to what Jesus did on Easter. We no longer have to fear anything, even death, because Jesus destroyed fear and death once and for all. After Jesus hung on a cross and was placed in a tomb, it seemed like humanity's greatest fear had come true. Death was the ultimate thing to fear. To Jesus' closest followers, it seemed like his death was final and that was it for them. The dream was over. But when Jesus walked out of the tomb alive, it proved that even the power of death wasn't strong enough to overcome the power of Jesus. This is why Paul was able to live the way he did, no longer fearing death. It's why he didn't seem to fear much of anything in his life after he encountered Jesus. He seemed to realize that the scariest things aren't the most powerful things. The things we fear don't have the same power that Jesus does. Paul trusted that the fears he faced were no match for the power of the resurrected Jesus. In other words, Easter means fear isn't final. If Jesus can't defeat death, or can defeat death, he can defeat the things that you're afraid of too. Fear will try to convince you that it gets the final word, that at the end of the day, it will win. Fear will try to convince you that you're not good enough, that you'll never find a purpose, or that your life isn't worth it, fear will try to make you listen and obey it. But here's the truth. Fear is only powerful if it can convince you that it is final. Fear will try to make you believe that nothing is stronger than what you're afraid of. But when Jesus defeated death itself, he showed us that nothing we fear is bigger than him. Nothing we fear is stronger than him. He showed us that fear, no matter what we're afraid of, doesn't get the final say. You may be thinking, you can't just tell me that because Jesus rose again, I don't have to be afraid or of anything, even death. Like, I'm still anxious, I'm still depressed, I'm still terrified of what's ahead in life. And I get that. Even if fear doesn't get the final word, that doesn't mean that there aren't still things to be afraid of. Real and big things. And it's not a guarantee that some of the things you're afraid of won't happen. But it does mean that you're more equipped to handle those things than you may realize. Paul says it this way in Romans 8:11. The Spirit of God who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. And in 2 Timothy, God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. Stop and think about this for a second. Paul is saying that the same power that defeated death 2,000 years ago when Jesus rose from the dead is actually inside of people who believe in Jesus today. Maybe that's why Paul seemed to live free from so many of the fears we typically face. And if you and I could embrace the significance of Easter in our lives, maybe we could too. When you have faith in Jesus, the power that brought Jesus back to life is inside of you as well. And that means fear doesn't get to tell you what to do. You may have started today controlled by all sorts of different fears. Just know that Jesus defeated death. The Spirit of Jesus who defeated death lives in you. Imagine what his Spirit can do in the face of the things you're afraid of. So I want you guys to ask yourself 2 questions. First, where has fear been holding you back? Be honest with yourself. Is it in your relationships? Is it dreaming big about your future? Is it going to college? Is it dealing with something concerning your mental health that you're afraid to acknowledge? Is it doing something that you know you should do no matter what it does to your reputation? Is it actually exploring faith in Jesus? Because up to this point, you've been afraid of how it might change your life. Wherever fear has been holding you back, with Jesus' help, you can take a step toward facing it today. And the second question I want you guys to ask is, what steps should I take to prove that fear doesn't have power over you? Maybe it's in forgiving someone, apologizing to someone, talking to your school counselor, telling your parents something you've never told them, asking your small group leader to help you with something you've been afraid to admit, picking a new friend group that's better for you, or asking the honest questions you have about Christianity. This Easter, no matter what your step is, you can begin facing your fear because of Jesus. Because of what we celebrate at Easter, what Jesus did for us, fear doesn't get to determine the direction of our lives anymore. I don't know what your guys' next step is, but I do know this. If you're someone who believes that Jesus defeated death, and you're someone that follows him, then you have his power inside of you. Because of that, you can handle whatever fear throws at you, no matter how scary it seems. Remember, you're not facing fear by yourself. You're relying on the power of the one who defeated your greatest fears once and for all. He took away its power, its victory, and its sting. And that means that you don't have to worry about anything being more powerful than Jesus. This is the hope that the Christian faith was built on. This is what caused Paul to live free from fear. This is what makes Easter such a happy holiday. While the rest of the world lives controlled by fear, driven by stress, you don't have to. We are free, and that's just one reason we can say, Happy Easter.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed Taylor's teaching. I know I did, and I'm so excited to continue to just dive into this idea of what does Easter really mean? What is it about in the next couple weeks as we celebrate Easter and then move into this season of celebrating that Jesus has risen from the dead, and what does that mean for our lives every day? So super pumped for that, but I have a few announcements before we jump back into our groups on Zoom. So the first thing that I wanted to let you guys know is that we are suspending our trip registration. You might have heard from me over the last few months that we were going to register next week. That is not happening. Registration for our backpacking trips and then for our move trip to Arizona, where we stay at Northern Arizona University with a bunch of other churches. Both of those are still happening. They're still on the calendar as of right now. We're continuing to assess it, but we just don't want to have you guys register during COVID-19 and are just going to put that on pause for a while, and we'll be in touch about when we have a new registration date. So just hold tight on that. And then the second thing that's really exciting is that we are going to start a reading plan together. We're going to be going through the book of John, and you can do that in a variety of ways. You could just open up your physical Bible. Imagine that, physical Bibles. Look, I even have one right here, a huge one. I got this study Bible. But you could do it with your physical Bible. You could open up the Bible app. And then I also want to let you know about this really cool app called Dwell, and I'll actually just throw up a video right now and you can kind of see what that app looks like. It's really cool. It kind of looks like Spotify. It has a lot of different playlists and reading plans, but it's an audio Bible, so you just listen, and they have a plan through the book of John that we're going to be following. But even if you don't do that on Dwell, we're going to start on Monday, and I'm going to give you guys the daily reading plan. So I'll have like stuff for you guys each week to remind you, text, email, Instagram, just to keep you guys up to speed on what we're reading this week in the book of John. So I'm really excited to do that in the next month. And then we're actually going to kick off on Monday by doing a devotional time together. And actually Taylor and I were thinking through what could it look like for us to have some rhythms as a WNT community in this season where a lot of the normal things have gotten just like pulled out from under us. What would it look like for us to have some cool rhythms that we could engage in each week? And so we're going to kick off this daily devotional rhythm of reading the book of John by having every single Monday a time for us to gather together on Zoom at 3 p.m. and just do a devotional together. And we're calling it Devotional Mondays. And so I'll send out the Zoom link and all that stuff for you guys, but Devotional Mondays is happening Mondays at 3 p.m. so you can do a Devo with other people. We'll kind of walk you through it and help you understand what that looks like, and then you can hear other people's ideas, or you can just sit back and observe. So it's totally up to you, but would love to have you join us. We're going to be doing that every Monday this month. Devo Mondays is what we're calling it. And then we're going to do Worship Tuesdays. Worship Tuesdays, we're just going to give you guys a few of our favorite worship songs that we've been listening to, things that are reminding us of who God is and what it looks like to live our lives for Him, in worship of Him, because we know that worship isn't just music, but music is a way that we can reorient our lives and say, I want my whole life to be oriented towards worshiping Jesus. So that's Worship Tuesdays, just focusing on worshiping Jesus. And then we're going to have WNT on Wednesday, just like we're doing today. So excited to continue to meet with you guys every Wednesday in our regular rhythm at 7:15 p.m. on Zoom. And then on Thursdays, we're having Social Thursdays. Social Thursday is just, we're encouraging all of us as a collective whole to be intentional in our relationship. So that just means we want you guys to connect with someone. Maybe you play a video game together online, maybe you have coffee over Zoom, whatever that looks like for you to connect with a friend virtually. That's what we're encouraging you guys to do with Social Thursdays. And then we're gonna have Reflection Friday, and we're gonna have a series of prompts for you guys to kind of work through. That could be journaling, or it could just be thinking through the past week that you've had, and what has God been doing? What has He been showing you? What things have been bringing you closer to Him? What things have been bringing you further away from Him? And we're gonna do this together as a community in hopes that it'll just make us aware of the work of God in our lives, and just help us set intentions and rhythms, and really connect with God, self, others in this season where everything's really different than we thought. So that's kind of that, but join us starting on Monday. We're gonna do those days, and we'll have things for you on social media to remind you about those. In the meantime, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. I'm excited to be back on Zoom with you, And don't forget that we have Sunday service. You can listen to it anytime on Sunday. It's just on demand. And so gather your family, grab some fun brunch, and just enjoy church in the morning or in the afternoon or in the night. All right. Bye, guys. See you back on Zoom.